Hey, we're back looking at Unwrapping the Pharaohs, lesson number 18. Going to be talking about Amenhotep II, and he's known as the Mighty Archer. Okay, he was the oldest son of Thutmose III that we just talked about. He was actually crowned by his father right before his death, so it truly gave him the succession and to the crown that he was longing for. Like his father, he aspired to follow in his military footsteps and immediately set out on military campaigns, right after being crowned. But even early in his life, he was trying to be a military leader like his father. He developed military skills very early in life as a child. He worked with the bow and arrow and became very skilled with the bow and arrow. He also was racing war chariots as a child. On page 134 of your book, it says, he seized his bow and grasped 4 arrows at once. He rode northward, shooting at the targets like Montu in his regalia. His arrows came forth from the back of one of them while he attacked another. And that is a thing indeed which had never been done or even heard of, that an arrow shot at a target of copper came forth from it and dropped to the earth. Now that his majesty appeared as king, as a beautiful youth who was well developed and had completed 18 years upon his thighs in strength. He was one who knew all the works of Mont. He had no equal in the field of battle. He was one who knew horses. There was not his like in this numerous army. None of them could draw his bow. He could not be approached in running. Basically, goes on to say, he was a great military success. He was one of the best. You would think of it today, our modern special forces kind of person. And so that's who he was. And so he sets out on these military campaigns. His first campaign, like I said, was immediately after coming to the throne with his father. He goes on several incursions into Palestine and Syria, and he claims to kill 7 prisoners, or 7 princes rather, and brings them back, their bodies back to Egypt to kind of put on display his power and might of these 7 princes that he was able to capture and kill, and in essence take their land to, provide tribute to Egypt. His second campaign, he boasts of plundering many towns. He claims 89,600 prisoners of war, which is a very specific number, but that's what he claims. He fought with Zerah. Then at one point he fights with Zerah the Ethiopian, and this, we believe, is King Asa of Judah, the Rehoboam's grandson. Okay, and he fights. Okay, let me start over. Mess that up. King Asa of Judah is believed to be Rehoboam's grandson, and King Asa of Judah fights with Zerah the Ethiopian. But he claims some divine intervention from God and just completely wipes out this army. Okay? Historians and scholars believe that Ethiopian could equal the area of Cush, and Cush is southern Egypt. And so they believe that Asa possibly defeated Amenhotep II. And one of these reasons for that is if you look at the record of Amenhotep, it shows in the 9th year of his military campaign was a complete failure. In his own words on page 134, it says he could boast of returning with only 2 horses, 1 chariot, and some bows and arrows. Nothing like the 89,600 prisoners of war or the 7 princes that he claims to have brought back from his other military campaigns, okay? So they believe that's what happened to him at that point. His other life, he wasn't really a builder, though he did build several statues or had them commissioned of himself. Page 135, it says he had several statues, including an unusual group that is now in the Egyptian Museum. It depicts him standing under the protection of the head of the cow goddess, Hathor, and also kneeling under the cow's body, drawing nourishment from its udder. So from that, we glean that he must have been a devout worshiper of Hathor, okay? Mostly, Amenhotep II becomes famous after his death, okay? We find his body was buried in the Valley of the Kings. He had a very beautiful sarcophagus that was found still in the tomb. And the only other mummy that was found completely intact was King Tut. Okay, so he goes partly for famous for that. But also during this, during the time period with the 21st dynasty, there started to be a lot of grave robbers. And the pharaohs of the 21st dynasty wanted to protect the kings of the 18th dynasty. And so they started to gather their bodies and move them into specifically 2 different tombs that we're aware of, okay? And so they did this to protect their bodies. Then, in around 1881, the authorities in Cairo start to discover some artifacts that they believe are from this 18th dynasty. And so they set out on a mission basically to catch these grave robbers. And they start looking on the black market, and eventually the investigators catch these robbers with the artifacts in hand. So there's no doubt that they've caught them. And they're, but so now they have to take these artifacts and they have to try to send them back to Cairo and get so they can protect them and document it, also prosecute the crimes. But they start running into this extremely rare, bizarre problem, okay? Everything, because you're dealing with government, and government sometimes is really strange, right? And you can't get, you have to go through the government process. And so they need to get the goods into Cairo, but everything that comes into Cairo has to be taxed. And so nobody's sure how to classify the mummies that they found. So they're trying to figure out how to classify the mummies, but they can't be let into Cairo until they're classified. And they can't protect them and keep them safe until they're classified. And so they're basically everybody's butting their heads. They're trying to figure out, but the government bureaucracy is just rolling. And so eventually they decide to classify these mummies as, quote, dried fish. A little bit of music. But it allows them to get them into Cairo. It allows them to protect them, allows them to put them eventually in the museum that's in Cairo. Okay? So a little strange. Eventually, in 1898, because of this incident, Victor Loret was looking at other things, and he finds Amenhotep II's tomb. He finds Amenhotep and the remainder of the other mummies that were moved from the 18th dynasty. They're all surprisingly undisturbed and intact. Okay, so they find basically a treasure trove of evidence and documents and things. Amenhotep's mummy's in very good condition. His sarcophagus hasn't been touched. When they open it up, they find inside his beloved bow. And that's why he's called the Mighty Archer. Some other things they find inside there are 3 different mummies. One was a male, one was a young female. And then there's an older female, which is possibly the wife of Amenhotep III, Queen T. And there's some other artifacts and different things. And so ultimately, Amenhotep becomes more famous after death than he did during his life. Thanks.